Hello, dearest friends, dearest beautiful co-creator souls of love and light. This is Nanari, Princess of the Sea, coming to you with a new video. In this video, I wish to speak with you about integrity. Jesus was one who got upset with the ones who were hypocrites of the Pharisees, because he believed and knew that we are to be integrity. And what integrity is that we are in alignment. Our thoughts, feelings, emotions, actions are all in alignment. And a dear friend of mine, and I will post the link for you in this video description, a dear friend of mine, Richard Kemp, posted this about 2 weeks ago, that says, hypocrite. Hypocrisy is the state of pretending to have beliefs, opinions, virtues, feelings, qualities, or standards that one does not actually have. Hypocrisy involves the deception of others and is thus a lie. And I really agree with that, and I had considered doing this video a while ago, and now in light of recent events in my own personal life, I have chosen to, because I received moments before I started this recording an email from something called the Inner Journey that I receive usually daily. I think it's going to be every other day now, and it says, "Are you in integrity?" And it says this: in order to have a rich life, everything about who you are must be one, in alignment and in pure harmony. It's a quote by Suze Orman. And then it goes on further to say, for clear and honest expression, our thoughts, speech, and actions must all be congruent. We will not stand in our power if we are inadvertently sending mixed messages, if we say one thing and do another. I have found it helpful to consciously identify the values that matter most to me. With these values in mind, it is easier to ensure that I am living them. And then there's a further quote that says, honor your integrity and you will be repaid many times over with increased prosperity. And that's from Sanaya Roman and Dwayne Packer. So in light of this, I wish to speak about integrity. As these quotes and messages have said, it's about what you say, what you do, how you act, your beliefs and whatnot, all being in alignment, and how hypocrisy is the opposite of that. When I was growing up, my mother had a saying. It was called, do as I say, not as I do. And so I find that to be rampant in the spiritual community in some certain circles, where there are people who say one thing and do a completely different something else. And I have had that happening in my own personal life. And this is why I'm sharing this with you. And I'm sharing it with you from a standpoint of being free from bashing anyone, just sharing about what the experiences of late in my personal life has been, to help shed a little light on this subject of integrity. So that said, perhaps those of you who have seen the YouTube video and the Facebook video and whatnot, and I will leave the links here in the video description for it so that you can watch them. Chris Mattson, my twin soul, recently, about a month and a half ago now, proposed to me. And then a week ago admitted that he had proposed to me via text. He had sent me a text saying that he did propose, and I will leave that also in the video description. And I had originally said yes to marrying him. However, what has unfolded since then, and really has been prevalent off and on throughout all of the 8.5 years that we have been together, has been him being out of integrity. Now, prior to his text on the 23rd of July saying to me that he did propose, on July 14th, he had a mutual friend of ours who has been dealing with her own health issues. She had an accident a couple of years ago which affected her memory and her brain, and she's still, going through her own problems. And she's a 22-year-old young girl who really does not know Chris all that well. And he has these young women living at his place all the time, and somehow thinks that it is okay to have girls younger than his daughter's age even living there with him. And so this young woman, who knows nothing about what's gone on between Chris and I all of these years, and has only known him for a little bit of time, and does not know anything beyond this. She wrote to me personally, trying to be this mama bear protecting, and her words were to me that Chris doesn't want me to contact him anymore, that he will always love me, but he wants to be left alone. Now, first of all, that's a mixed message. You don't tell someone you always love them, and at the same moment say, don't contact me. And you certainly don't have a 22-year-old young girl who knows nothing about the situation or what's happened in the last 8.5 years, who has her own health issues to deal with, to say something. And so I wrote back to her and proceeded to explain to her that, I understand she feels to be protective, but he's a big boy and he can do so himself. And, it also shows, I didn't write this to her, but it shows that of his insecurity being that he's 62 years old and he has to have a 22-year-old young girl. And I did mention this to her, don't you find it odd that he's a 62-year-old man and yet has to have you, a 22-year-old, protect him from someone who's not a bad person, who's been in his life, who, obviously she didn't know that he proposed to me. So if he is mature enough, spiritually and otherwise, he could come to me and say so himself. He could tell me that he loves me, and he could also tell me that, he doesn't want to be in contact either, if that was the case. But that said, someone who you proposed to just a few weeks before, little did Alicia know about this, I'm sure, you don't send somebody else to do that. And so he keeps it quiet and doesn't say anything about the fact that we're even in contact, to mutual friends of ours and things of that nature, let alone that he proposed to me, because he has deeper issues of guilt and shame that he is holding on to, that he hasn't healed, because it means that he has to come clean with our mutual friends, his daughter, his family and whatnot, that not only are we in contact, but we've been very intimate, yet he runs around and tells people that, he's not in love with me, we're not in a relationship, that we, that I'm this bad woman, that I'm stalking him, and all these other lies. And none of it is true. We're in constant contact all the time. You don't be in constant contact with someone who's stalking you, okay? So there's constant back and forthness within him, and not being in integrity, saying one thing, doing something else, saying something one moment, and then turning around and changing around the story to suit him. Now, his and my mutual friend, Tim Reardon, who actually used to own MEI with him, who stopped being in business with him for these reasons, wrote to me about 6 years ago or so this message and said, I don't put it past him. Sounds like classic Madsen behavior to me. I've learned from past experience that Chris throws ethics out the window if it benefits him. I know, however, in the past he has had a dark side to him. There was more than one woman that he got obsessed with and acted very irrationally when things didn't go his way. Chris can be very manipulative and can make things look very different than they actually are. So he's not just this way with me, he's this way with everyone. And again, this is not to bash him or anything else. This is just to show the extremities that I've had to deal with in regards to my own personal life with someone who is not in integrity, who is living in a place of hypocrisy, and my having to deal with it both as a light worker and also in an intimate personal relationship. And I know deep down this isn't who he really is. At the heart of it all, he's got a beautiful heart. He's an amazing man with a heart of gold, and I love him and I will always love him. It's just that he has this very dark side, as Tim Reardon had written to me all those years ago. And, it's something that he hasn't healed in all of these years, and he's been projecting it out onto me and making my life and other people's lives miserable. I mean, I can recall, too, a time last year when he texted me in paranoia about a woman who tagged me, him, and 96 other people with beautiful pictures of love, just to send love on Facebook. And he texted me in paranoia paranoia, thinking that she's trying to get him and is like infiltrating his Facebook page and things of that nature. And so there's this constant battle, this war inside of him that, at the heart of it, I know is not who he is. Yet it is very hard and difficult to deal with from an earthly perspective, especially when I've had mutual friends who he tells certain things to that they believe him and take his word for it without even seeing any proof. And then also do this denial, even when they see the proof, they turn that and bury their heads in the sand. And so it's very hard when he's being very abusive. And, I try to come forward and take a stand as I'm doing here in this video here, and then have others turn around and bash me for it and be in his defense because they don't know and or aren't willing to see the actual proof. And so it becomes very difficult to deal with when someone is not in integrity and you are in integrity. And I've been living and being the princess from Song of the Troubadour, which is what he said. He texted me recently even saying that this is the type of relationship that he wants to have, is from Song of the Troubadour that he wrote, and then subsequently asked me to write Song of the Princess. And so yet he's not living and being who the troubadour is, and then he's bashing me for actually living and being as the princess is in Song of the Troubadour, because he has these deep issues unhealed of traumas within him and projecting that out onto me, and then accuses me and says that I'm doing that and, that I'm delusional and, all of these other things because I'm not, buying his every word in obedience. And so he also has gone about trying to say that he has been single for the last 12, almost 13 years since his divorce. And I happen to know for a fact that people like Shahaya, Bonita, who is Shahaya's friend, Isabel, Wendy, who he wrote the song Wendy Awake for, all of these were his girlfriends, during the last 12 years before he and I came together 8.5 years ago. And I'm sure all of these women, one of which he was also engaged to for a brief time as well, that Bonita validated for me several years ago, that I have in an email, all of these women would say to the contrary, yet he makes up this story in his mind that he's been single this whole time and all he had were flings, when all of these women obviously could attest to the fact, and I have emails proving from a couple of these women that he did in fact have these relationships with these women. And so there's been this back and forth that's going on. And so what happened is that then he admitted that he proposed to me. And then in whatever the situation is, he has some issues within him. He proceeded in the days that followed to pick a fight with me about something that's happened 8.5 years ago. And this is being a reoccurring theme over and over again. And I really feel, not to label him, but I really feel he must have either PTSD, dementia, bipolar. Mutual friends of ours have come to me and said, they feel similar. Because these are reoccurring things that happen over and over again, as if he's being in trauma. And the other day he even texted me saying that, he feels like I was attacking him, and he had to attack me, attack this, as if I'm some enemy or something. And so what precipitated to happen is he accuses me of saying that, his princess would never say that we co-wrote songs together. Well, first of all, I never did. And in fact, I actually have letters of proof showing that I never claimed to. Now, there was a song back about this time 8 years ago called There's a World, in which he wrote to me and asked me what my vision was for a world similar to the song Imagine, and if I could envision a world, what would that be? And so I wrote that to him, and in some cases almost word for word, what I wrote to him is in that song. Did I ever say that we co-wrote such? No, I've always said from the beginning that all it matters is that we, created together. I don't want any credit for anything, because I know that it doesn't belong to me or to him. It belongs to Source. So I sat there and point blank, for the umpteenth millionth time that this has come up, sent him letters straight from the email servers showing that I never did, and then he tried to claim that it wasn't that song that I had claimed it in, and really what it is it's a made-up story that he created in his mind to make me look like the enemy. I have proof, and all he is doing is utilizing his word. He thinks that because he said so, that I supposedly claimed this, that this matters. He has no proof, no emails, no nothing to show that I ever said or did anything of this nature. And I have even said to him that with the flat earth theory and with the Illuminati, it's not like people run around and say, oh yeah, the Illuminati is real and the flat earth is real without any proof. Obviously, he's been doing his quote-unquote research. There's tons of actual literal proof that shows these things are real for those who choose to go down that path. So for him to just say that, his word is law and that's all that matters, when the proof is sitting right there staring in front of him in the face, obviously means there is a deeper issue. Now, the bottom line, though, is what's deeper in this, and which is what has people go out of integrity, is there's usually a deeper issue. When what is really happening is that he's so traumatized by what happened between him and his ex-wife that he's projecting it onto me and created this story in his head as if this happened when it never did, because he's replaying what happened of his trauma from his ex-wife and projecting it onto me. And because he refuses to look within him to heal, this is what's been going on for the last 8.5 years, where it's continuously like he feels he's in trauma and he's constantly triggered. Whereas someone who is healed wouldn't be triggered by this. They would naturally be honored to co-write a song with me, and it wouldn't be an issue. These are the kind of things that I have been dealing with because of him not healing within himself and being hypocritical in saying to the world, be love and light, yet he does these things behind the scenes and doesn't do the inner spiritual work to heal and projects those things onto me, and then he accuses me of doing these things. And he also claimed that that he didn't co-write a book with me. Now, I put this book together, yes, into book format, and then had the publisher or the distributor that I use for my publishing company send it to him for his birthday as a surprise back in 2009. So we're talking, almost 8 years ago now, 7.5 years ago that this happened. However, I have email letters from him that I once again, as this comes up over and over again over the last 8 years, where he'll argue with me and say that he never wrote a book with me and whatnot. And I will send him straight from the server the emails that he wrote to me saying it was our manuscript, it was our book. He even subsequently, after I sent him the proof copy as a birthday present, he wrote the preface for the book, which ended up being included in the book after the fact. And I sent him those emails as well, and he point blank denies still that we never wrote a book together. Yes, I compiled the book together, into book format, which is something he does not know really how to do. He's done it for a couple of his books, but it's never been, professional looking per se. So I did that, and it was supposed to be a surprise to give to him for his birthday as a gift of love. I did all of this as a gift of love. I didn't do it to attack him. I didn't do it to be harmful or anything else. He created these stories in his mind because the deeper healing issue is that back years ago, we're talking 12, 13 years ago now, when he divorced his ex-wife, she gave him intellectual property rights to his music school, which at that time was bringing in about $10,000 to $12,000 a month cleared. And she told him, he had told me this, that, if he couldn't live on that, then there was something wrong with him. Well, he was at that point an alcoholic. He is now 4.5 years recovering alcoholic, although he never admits that. He will say that he took his vibrant health to the next level. And I think that's a wonderful way to say that. And I don't look bad upon him for this or or any of this that I'm sharing with you. I'm just sharing what the experience is to help people to understand about integrity and hypocrisy. So when this happened, he got so traumatized by his divorce that he made certain that he would never co-create or co-write music or anything with anybody because of intellectual property rights and court issues and everything else that he went through with his ex-wife. And so he's created this story in his head that I somehow claimed this and did this and I'm this evil person for doing this. Now, if he was healed from this, any man in their right mind, when they're coming from their heart, would be honored to say that they co-wrote a song with me. Michael and Ricky Beckwith, David Premal and Mitton, John Lennon and Paul McCartney. I can give you countless people who co-write songs together and they are not traumatized and have issues. And I really have deep compassion with Chris and for Chris because of these issues. And I've done my best to be compassionate listening, to even agree with him, to try to help soothe his fears. I've even gone so far as to tell him that, if he wanted me in us living together or marrying or even right now, sign something that I really didn't care what Canadian law said, I would sign something that says that, everything that he has is his, and I don't want any rights to anything. I don't care about anything. He could even have the rights to all of my stuff. I really don't care. I did a video about 4 years ago explaining this called Wishes, that we don't own anything, because I know that, like Khalil Gibran says, and even John Lennon has said, we don't own anything. It belongs to God. And so he will go back, Chris will go back and forth on these different topics and bring them up. Last year, I was living in Sedona for a time, and I was actually mentoring two women, one who was an acquaintance friend of mine who I was meeting for the first time, had been friends with her on Facebook, and then I was meeting her friend, and she had asked me to do a session, and so we had an afternoon together and an evening where we had lunch and dinner, and we're out in nature, and I was doing mentoring with this woman and throughout the whole day and whatnot. And completely out of the blue, I receive a text from Chris in the middle of our dinner, me and these two women, in his paranoia, saying, "Oh, you better not be claiming me and claiming, that I'm yours and whatever to these women." Now, I hadn't heard from Chris all day, and just out of the blue, he texts me something like that in paranoia, where I had not even talked to these women about Chris or about anything having to do with this the whole entire day. So it is things like this that, Chris would do, and I've been dealing with for the last 8.5 years, and then he would call me delusional, or he would call me crazy because I wouldn't agree with his word, or say that, I'm doing something to harm him, and he's even carried it further to the fact of he's now claimed recently that what he tried to do 2 years ago, which I brought him back into his soul, of when he said he was going to just, give up the music and go and pursue the Illuminati, and that this was going to be his mission. Well, as of late, he's been doing this as well. And this is another aspect of being in integrity. You do not say one thing, which his recent videos and his videos in general on Facebook and YouTube promote being of love and being of light and seeing beyond the masks of people and, all of these different things about, being love. But then he goes on Facebook just recently on a mutual friend's page and posts this. And I can leave the links for all of this in the video description so that you can see them. He writes this: Americans as a whole are incredibly barbaric. They terrorize the rest of the world under the lie of fighting terrorism, in quotes, when they are the ones who are doing the false flags and then invading innocent countries. They fill the food supply with GMO toxins and put citizens in prison to punish rather than heal wounded spirits. Americans are to blame as they are allowing the controllers to have their way. The elections are a joke. It was settled at the Bilderberg a couple of years ago Hillary would be the next puppet president. I wonder if Americans will ever collectively wake up. The vast majority of the rest of the world wonders as well. he then also posted and still in another post, and still Americans are such sheeple, they will actually believe they are a free country and their vote matters while they go look for Pokemon eating their GMO food. Now, this is coming from a man who says to be love and be light. And he recently said to me via text that I don't understand his mission. Well, no, Chris, I don't understand your mission. I don't understand a man who puts videos out about love and light and about how to be this love and do this love and whatnot, yet turns around and on his Facebook page or friends' Facebook pages writes comments that are hateful like this. He forgets, and I subsequently put a comment, several comments actually, on this one particular post. He seems to forget that he is also an American. He was born in the States. He has dual citizenship, yet, he also says, that people from the States put citizens in prison to punish rather than heal wounded spirits. Yet he ostracizes people and writes hateful comments like this. And on his private YouTube page is constantly, quote unquote, researching the Illuminati and flat earth things and whatnot, and thinks that this is supposed to be research. So, and his most recent video on Facebook, he proceeds to say that the reason he's doing it is so that he can know where to send the love and light. Well, everyone on Earth knows what's wrong with this Earth, and even if flat Earth is true, and even if the Illuminati does exist and whatnot, the fact is you don't need to constantly, quote unquote, research by watching and liking videos endlessly to know where to send the love to. Okay? You can just do that because you know who's hurting and who isn't in this world. And even if you didn't know, you just be this love. And yet, also, I wrote a personal comment on another mutual friend, when he slammed this new Pokemon Go. I have some personal experiences with Pokemon Go. My son, or Pokemon in general, my sons, grown men that they are, love Pokemon. And my oldest was very little when it first came out. And he has the original card set. And we had a lot of bonding experiences through watching the shows and through our experiences with Pokemon. And it's not just, some game. And actually, today, in fact, there was a post I saw, and I'll leave the link in the video description here as well, that talks about a woman who is excited because her autistic child is coming out and being more social because of Pokemon Go. Whereas Chris put this post saying that, that they're so Pokemon Go is so horrible and it's this bad thing. And he had texted me saying things that, they are the enemy and I have to fight them and, all of these different things. And he's abandoning the music. So Chris, no, I don't understand a man who wrote Song of the Troubadour, who in Song of the Troubadour, as the troubadour, is asking the king for mercy upon Lord Darkin and his henchmen, who, Lord Darkin and his henchmen could be seen as the Illuminati even, in the grander spiritual context when you look at Song of the Troubadour. Yet you write these horrible, hateful things, Chris. I do not understand your mission when you, as a little boy at 6 years old, kneeled on the kitchen floor praying to God, asking him to make you a guitar player, and then you go and abandon what you are here to do to go after some research of Illuminati and saying such hateful comments. So no, I don't understand your mission. I don't understand how you can be so in such hypocrisy. And much like Jesus outed the Pharisees for being in hypocrisy, that's why I loved Richard Kemp's post for not being in integrity. Jesus did this with the Pharisees, and so too I'm doing this now. Am I doing this to be mean and bashing Chris? No. What I'm doing is sharing a very personal example in my own life in which I had to take a deep look at the marriage proposal that was given to me a month and a half ago and see if I really, in my heart of hearts, could be in integrity with it and actually marry this man. And as another dear friend of mine, Jeff Brown, who speaks about all these energies and whatnot, he just posted a few days ago this letter. And it says, "Drinking from an empty glass, a letter to a dear dark friend. Yes, I know the government is corrupt. Yes, I know there are people conspiring. Yes, I know people can lack integrity. Yes, I know that Western culture is materialistic. Yes, I know that corporations are self-serving. Yes, I know that the media is manipulative. Yes, I know it is hard to trust love. Yes, I know that it can be difficult to believe in God. I share many of your concerns. And I also know that we cannot change the world without acknowledging what is wrong. I know we must stand against that which shames, oppresses, damages humanity. I know that we should not ignore injustices and put on a fake smile. I know that we must find our voice and stand our ground. I know that we must fight for our right to the light. I believe in forward moving criticism. But something doesn't quite feel right. You complain all the time. You have made negativity a full-time job. You don't make an effort to find solutions. You blame everything on the world out there. You don't actually do anything positive to affect change. And I put in parentheses, or you do something and then you take it back by being out of integrity, as Chris has been doing this back and forth stuff. And you seldom acknowledge the positive steps that humanity has made. You seldom acknowledge the beauty around you. You almost never see the light in the darkness. And he goes on further in this to explain something which I will go down further in. And so what he asks is that, what is it that's hurting within you? He says at the last paragraph, and so I wonder, what lives below your perpetual negativity? Apart from the problems in the world, what happened that darkened your lens? What made the glass so empty? Is it really about the world out there? Or are there also unresolved personal experiences that need to be healed? What are you really trying to express about the lack of love, attention, and satisfaction in your life? What lives below this victimhood? What is your deeper complaint? What needs to be expressed and resolved so that you will see some light shining through again? Please don't wait until the world is perfect, for it'll never be so. And I found this to be so profound and perfectly said by a man, because so many of us divine feminine have been out there saying this message, but not as many divine masculine. And so I honor Jeff, and this is the question that I asked to Chris. And for all of those of you who are constantly complaining about Illuminati and flat earth and this and that that's bad with the world, what is below all that negativity? What is it that's unhealed within you? What is it that you're really trying to express about lack of love, attention, and satisfaction in your life? What is your deeper complaint? What needs to be expressed and resolved so that you can see the light? This is the things that personally deep within Chris that he needs to do for himself. I have been that love for him and compassion, and I can't do anymore and be anymore. This is something that he has to do for himself. Now, there's something to be said for unconditional love, and you love someone no matter what. And I have written posts about this on our Sacred Path, Sacred Union group with a woman who I mentor who had said, maybe you should marry him. Maybe you're the only person that, can love him and heal him. And a mutual friend of Chris's and mine said similar to me as well. And I weighed those very heavily in my heart. And I came to realize that, someone who is warring within themselves will do this and say this and act this way as Chris is. And I do have great, deep compassion. Yet I also know I've come to the place where I am required to place boundaries. So in integrity, I know that for me to be integrity and an authenticity with myself and to not be in hypocrisy, in my deepest heart of hearts, the way things are right now, where Chris is in this dark place, I cannot marry him, because this is not what my life is about. My life is about uplifting humanity, and no, not sticking myself or my head in the sand. I know these things exist. But to go and continuously call this quote-unquote research, watching videos and liking videos and saying such harmful, hateful, judgmental posts like this and whatnot, that is becoming more of obsession and addiction. And Chris has a very addictive personality and all the traits that go along with it. And, you know, I just cannot be in integrity and continue to walk this path with him until and unless he looks within him and heals. There is no enemy outside of us. Yes, there may be people on this earth who do things that are not of integrity, that are not of the soul essence. Yet, at the same moment, that does not mean that we need to spend our lives focusing on that. There are way too many things that are going on right in this world. And every day people are, sharing on TV and in posts what's wrong with this world. John Lennon, give peace a chance. Him and Yoko Ono went on a crusade of their own, a mission of their own to be peace. And yes, there were moments that John Lennon stood up and said what he said about the government and things of that nature. Yet, in integrity, overall, his message was of peace. He stood up for the hypocrisy, yes, but he didn't say hateful things like Chris is doing. And so, at this point, I have turned down Chris's proposal, and I have walked away from the situation because I know that this is not in integrity with who I am. My life is about helping humanity to be who they are. And so in integrity, what I have to share is if you have someone in your life that is not walking the talk, if you have someone in your life who is doing as I say, not as I do, saying one thing, doing another, if you have someone in your life who, despite your being compassionate listening and being unconditional love and being all the attributes of love with them in helping to heal, still is stuck and chooses not to shift, then you are to do what you need to do in loving yourself and take a step back, love them and love them from a distance, and place firm boundaries. I have placed firm boundaries with Chris, and either he's going to rise into the troubadour that he is, or he's just no longer going to be in my life, and that will happen naturally on its own. I do have great compassion for him. I know he is deeply hurting within him to say and do the things that he does and says. I just at this point cannot marry him. And so I am opening myself up to allow and surrender whatever is meant to be in the universe for me to move on with my life. And I am confident that the man who I am meant to be with, who is honored to co-create and co-write music and books with me, who is honored to do this light work with me and is about uplifting humanity and who walks the talk, will come into my life. And I thank you, Source, for that. Chris is a beautiful man and a beautiful soul, and he's an amazing guitarist, and he has so much to give if he would just move into his heart and stay in his heart and heal those things within him that he hasn't. I know he has a heart of gold, and I do wish him all the best in his life. I just can't marry him. I can't continue this chaos when he's choosing not to heal within himself. This is something that he has to heal within himself. He quit the drinking 4.5 years ago, but he never really healed what caused him to drink. He's never done AA. He does spirituality on his own, but he really doesn't do anything that helps him to heal, and he projects out there as if it's me or others who are to blame rather than looking within. I've done the inner healing work. Yes, I have, being the princess all of these 8.5 years, I've made mistakes, I've made some errors, and I've admitted them, and I've healed from them and received the lessons from them and changed, and stuff. And I died 5 months ago, almost 6 months ago now, and I don't need this type of stress in my life of having to deal with this chaoticness. He begged me to come back. He sang to me Angels Are Here, his song, and brought me back from death 5 months ago, saying that he would do it right. And at the heart of it all, I know he's a beautiful man and a beautiful soul. He just needs to take the time to heal within. And if we were ever meant to really be, then we'll come back together. And if not, then a man who is willing to co-create with me will come. And that's why I thank Source, knowing that that will happen. And to those of you who are struggling with either being in integrity within yourself or with someone in your life, if it is within you, I invite you to do what you can to heal. I am here to mentor you through this. If you so choose to call upon me for a mentoring session or a meditational hypnosis session or a reading or whatnot, find ways to shift those programmings within you. If it is you, if it is someone in your life, you can gently suggest some things if you wish. And again, if you have done the compassionate listening and everything that I have done with Chris over all these years, and yet here we sit 8.5 years later with him being so traumatized still by everything, then let them go in love and allow the universe to bring forth what is meant to be. I love you all dearly and deeply, and may this gift bring you in integrity, in authenticity, in beautiful love and light always. In authenticity, in beautiful love and light always. Espado.